January 1st, 1994, a primarily indigenous rebel group, the Zapatista National Liberation Army, or EZLN, declared war on the Mexican government. They yelled, "Ya basta, enough," and announced that NAFTA, which went into effect the same day, meant death to indigenous people.
We are the Zapatista National Liberation Army. For 10 years, we lived in these mountains, preparing to fight a war. In these mountains, we built an army. Below, in the cities and plantations, we did not exist. Our lives were worth less than those of machines or animals. We were like stones, like weeds in the road. We were silenced, we were faceless, we were nameless. We had no future. We did not exist.
Pues como ya nos declaramos de por sí en guerra, entonces fue cuando empezamos a pensar, porque los niños quedaron abandonados, pues nada más se dedicaban a jugar, y entonces ya fue que empezamos a pensar que es bueno que empecemos ya con la educación autónoma.
Le decimos la otra educación porque es nuestra, la educación que nosotros hemos venido practicando y hemos venido haciendo en todo nuestro territorio.
Así como los niños y niñas aprendan la buena educación, para que tengan en la cabeza por qué estamos luchando, por qué somos zapatistas.
Mientras estemos resistiendo, mientras estemos luchando por un mundo mejor, estamos existiendo. Cuando ya no hagamos eso, estamos como muertos mirando la televisión, o haciendo las ideas que quiere el gobierno, o viviendo como quiere el gobierno, como si fuéramos autómatas. Nos quieren vestir de grises y de tristeza. Entonces eso es como la muerte.
Art is a form of expression, but it's not just something beautiful to look at. Art is a political statement.
Nosotros solamente somos representantes de los pueblos. Ellos nos eligen para representar, y como juntas es nuestra forma de cómo gobernamos, pero junto con el pueblo.
The masks that the Zapatistas wear are symbolic. They're symbolic of their identity. Without a mask, a Zapatista is just another damn Indian. With a mask, a Zapatista becomes someone, becomes a rebel, becomes someone who is fighting for a cause. If you ask Zapatistas why they wear the mask, one of the answers they'll give is that they wear a mask because it gives them a voice and it gives them a face.
Responsable localetik, regionaletik, elik rifchi para que somos bayiktale. También a los compañeros de diferentes países del mundo se les pide que se concentren ya en este momento.
Our students found the organization on the internet and made the contact with Peter Brown, the director. We learned from him, learned about the Schools for Chiapas, and the students made a commitment to follow through with helping out with specifically a school in San Andres, Chiapas.
Article 3 of the Mexican Constitution deals with education, and the very first thing it says is that every Mexican has a right to a free public education. Where the Zapatistas chose to build schools, for the most part, there were no schools, and if they were, they often were expensive and substandard.
During the New Year's party, we made connections with a community called Suitik, which is a very small community that had a small 2-room schoolhouse, and we made plans to paint a mural there. And it was an amazing experience because it wasn't just our group which was painting the mural, but also obviously the community was greatly involved in that, and we had an opportunity to work with Gustavo Chavez, who is an amazing and world-renowned Mexican muralist.
Mi nombre es Gustavo Chávez Pavón. Soy aprendiz de artista, soy aprendiz de pintor, pero más soy aprendiz de soñador. Estamos pintando para la guerra. Trabajadores.
Fantástico.
Trabajadores.
Un otro. Fantástico. Fuerte. Un grupo fuerte.
Muy fuerte. Es buena maestra.
Exactamente.
Excelente maestra.
Excelente.
Careful. Abajo, abajo, abajo. Bajo la línea.
The painting of the mural, I think we didn't really understand when we first started. It seemed like, not to say that it was a superficial thing, but we thought we were just painting a school and we were making it visibly more pleasing and interesting and bright and cheery. And it was a way of marking the school and making it their own. But at the same time, the murals we were painting were very powerful and very symbolic.
¿Qué significan para ti los murales? Ven, la mirada lo dice todo.
When you went into the Zapatista communities, there was just no question of where you were. The murals documented, the history of this movement and the struggle for autonomy and for freedom and equality.
On January 1st, while the rest of Mexico was celebrating the start of the new year, and President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, along with the country's political elite, were toasting the implementation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, the EZLN was mobilizing to take over 5 major towns in the state of Chiapas. Shortly after midnight, poorly armed women and men took over the towns of Ocosingo, San Cristobal, Altamirano, Las Margaritas, and Comitán.
Suitik is the birthplace of one of the biggest figures in all of the Zapatista movement, Comandante Ramona.
She's almost to the level of a saint there, I think. She's become
a symbol of really what they stand for and of the struggles that they went through with the government, and sort of her mission has been taught to all of the children there. And actually, while we were there, we had a celebration remembering her. A priest came and talked about her as being the symbol of their community, and her father, who was like 100-something years old, was there to celebrate it too, and everybody was dancing, and there was a little shrine put up to her, and people will go up and cross themselves in front of the shrine.
¡Viva la comandante Ramona!
¡Que viva! Con la mano izquierda. Con la mano izquierda.
¡Viva Emiliano Zapata!
¡Viva!
Zapata represents fighting for land, fighting for dignity, and fighting for liberty.
In February 1994, the Zapatistas again entered San Cristóbal de las Casas, this time to begin the peace negotiations. From the cathedral, Comandante Cebedeo spoke about the importance of peasant and indigenous peoples' right to land.
We decided to go to war so that the peasants could have land, not the ranchers. It wasn't for one village nor for the state, but rather for everyone who doesn't have land.
Che is up there, Che Guevara, of course, because he is, in a sense, a grandfather of a lot of the revolutionary movements in Mexico and in Central America generally.
They're a group also that have a very profound and very deep culture whose roots go back thousands of years in the area. They are the people that invented corn. They are the people that built the giant pyramids that are so famous. They're the people whose languages, whose art forms, whose written language was attempted to be destroyed as the Europeans arrived in the Americas, but they weren't destroyed, they survived.
Finally, you see a big figure of a woman behind a book. The book is a paliacate, is the covering of the face that depicts her as a Zapatista, but also the book represents knowledge.
No, I wanted to get him with his hand at the same time.
Then I was ready up here.
You also see a globe, and that globe represents the connection that the Zapatista movement has with other indigenous empowerment movements around the world.
All these symbols of, this struggle for liberty and for freedom were really important, and it was showing what was essential to this community, and that was this continued struggle for education and for autonomy.
No permitiremos la ideología capitalista que los neoliberales coman a costa del sufrimiento de los pobres y que los pobres recibamos las migajas que nos dan.
In the scheme of government planning and the way that Mexico has been moving, particularly in the last 15, 20 years, indigenous people living in the way that the Zapatistas live, they don't count for anything. There's no investment going into the schools, there's no investment going into the health system. The scheme really is for them to leave the countryside and become part of an urban or semi-urban working class, not to maintain as autonomous rural agricultural producers, which is what they want to do.
Haji monumentro nanti awosil ti kuya kalor ta stulel ta ora cruz famle.
Como 20 metros.
In 1994, when NAFTA went into effect, globalization, with its many positive and negative impacts, began to be felt in Chiapas. Coffee is a cash crop that can be sold to earn money for various necessities that can't be produced locally.
La prima di lastikwa como yung dati skybin to habos ba skybin mujukli usile kayon siya sa lastikwa ta pasko putika kilto hutik kus bichikita kusha palis mukule ta kanti ako sam bahitikli usile ako ya kritik usil ti chupul ahwalile pero miskunim dalake baska mismelta hutikli balumil misachum hutikli balumil kum dalek kritik.
¿Cómo se llama esto en Tzotzil?
Que se las habilita,
To look.
To look. ¿Y en español?
Another thing that the Mexican government has tried to do is invade the mental space of the indigenous people in Chiapas. In the schools, Spanish is taught, and indigenous languages are seen as secondary and unimportant. And so the language that is spoken and the language in which classes are taught affects the children. And so the children learn to be ashamed of their language, be ashamed of their culture, because language and culture are interwoven. That's one of the things that the Zapatistas are trying to confront. They're trying to create a sense of dignity and a sense of positive self-esteem among the people in Chiapas. Specifically, they're working in the schools because it's the children who are the future of the indigenous people. They're the future of this latest generation of Mayans. If children feel ashamed of their language, if children feel ashamed of their culture, they're very likely to move away and to not carry on cultural traditions. And so over a generation or two, without autonomous schools, without the Zapatista schools, these ancient Mayans will be destroyed. Their culture will be destroyed.
Mexicanos al grito de guerra, en la selva presta el gridón, y retiembla en sus centros la tierra, al sonoro rugir del cañón. Y retiembla en sus centros la tierra, al sonoro rugir del cañón.
One of the things that I was struck by on New Year's Eve when we were at Oventique is how the Mexican national anthem was played before the Zapatista national anthem. And all the speeches were repeated first in Spanish and then in Tzotzil, the local language. So there is respect for, acknowledgement of, and a desire to work with the Mexican government. But they still are without permission, literally.
Okay, let's move the paint. Okay, team.
The problems are tremendous. The problems have to do with this grinding and overwhelming poverty that makes ridiculous diseases become a fatal disease. A toothache kills you when you're 30. Measles wipes out 20 kids in a community because they're so malnourished. A simple cut or infection can lead to very, very dire consequences because of the lack of medical care. What's exciting is that people are confronting the problems. People have decided on their own, with their own wisdom and knowledge and background and what they've got, they're going to make a change. They're going to resist, as they say, and they're going to live in resistance, which means that they won't take anything from the government. They're going to make change with their own work, with their own contacts, with their own friends.
También la resistencia es por ser alegres. No queremos que nos quiten la alegría ni la sonrisa, porque la sonrisa es la esperanza. Y la esperanza, la de aquí, la de nuestros pueblos, la de nuestros pueblos de Chiapas, los pueblos zapatistas y los pueblos de todo México, y muchos pueblos que hemos conocido en todo el mundo, son sonrisas de esperanza, pero constructora. Son sonrisas de esperanza de colores, como estos muros.
Many people have successfully traveled and worked beside the Zapatistas. We'd like you to come down. We'd like you to come down and help build a school. Your labor will be symbolic. They got lots of people that build very well. But it's really something to be there and be beside people when they're working.
Going down to Chiapas was not a tourist vacation by any stretch of the imagination, but it was certainly a profound and important experience.
Open to lek skill ma tasula anitike to lek to bus startal hutik butu toyol tas to hutik lika le baltus kai le hashushich bal baltus tulus to hutik yasali to lek mukus chupol hun kultal hutik.
Vámonos. Al final dice la compañera, muchas gracias por visitarnos y pues en el transcurso del viaje pues cuídense mucho y eso llévenle el mensaje a los demás compañeros que se quedaron allá.
¡Viva Chiapas!
¡Viva!
¡Viva México!
¡Viva!
Esta lucha es nuestra. Es nuestra lucha, de ustedes y de nosotros, porque en todas partes se sufre de pobreza,